Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about the gooseberry. Okay, so here we have a gooseberry plant. The fruits are still green. When they're ripe, they will turn a bright red, and they're sending out some new growth for the year, and they seem to be quite happy. As the fruit grows in size, they add more weight to the plant, causing the branches to bend over. You can prevent this by staking them or putting some fencing around them, but also it's kind of how they naturally propagate, because when the shoots hit the ground, over time they start sending down roots, and that's how you can propagate new gooseberry clones to plant throughout the garden. So this plant is popular in a lot of permaculture type gardens. The gooseberry is also a close relative to the currant, which also produces edible fruit. And the gooseberry, there are American varieties and there are European varieties. So some of these gooseberry bushes are native to America. It just depends on the variety that you have. So here we have another gooseberry plant. Of course, we have some spearmint growing in here as well, which is interesting because even though the gooseberry plant does have thorns, the deer still seem to browse it anyway. Now with the peppermint in here and other aromatic plants that you might be able to use, this might help to act as a deterrent, but I don't really know because this whole area is fenced in. It's pretty much been keeping the deer out anyway for the most part, but it also might help protect the fruit from maybe voles or mice, and you know, maybe not, but I'll have to keep my eye on this and see if this gooseberry plant is less affected by, you know, the mice or the voles taking the fruit. Compared to that one over there, which does not have any spearmint growing in it. This particular bush hasn't been fruiting quite as abundantly as the other one, but I'm not sure if it's an age thing or if it's just the genetics of the plant. But nonetheless, we are getting some good fruit here. They're growing in size. Probably within the next few weeks, they'll start to turn red. We're in early June here in zone 6A climate. This plant can be useful in companion planting when creating these polycultural guilds in permaculture. You can use it as a living fence, or you can use it as an addition to a living fence. However, realize that deer may still browse it. Like I said, the gooseberry is easy to propagate. I'll probably cover that in another video. So anyway, in terms of edibility, the young leaves you can nibble on them raw in moderation. I mean, they're not terrible. Well, that one was kind of bitter. So the prime edible aspect of this plant are the berries. So let's talk about those. So the berries in their unripe stage, you can nibble on them raw. They're kind of tart, kind of like a Granny Smith apple, maybe a little bit more tart than that. But they're pretty good. You can eat them raw, maybe you can cook them up or something. But also an interesting idea is to kind of pickle them or like lacto ferment them and to preserve them in that way, which is something that I want to try, and I may attach onto the second part of this video. And then of course when the fruit turns ripe, you can cook it up into make, you know, jams, jellies, preserves and things like that. Maybe you could try drying them. Freezing the berries might be an option as well. So what I have here is a green unripe gooseberry. Like I said, you can nibble on a couple of them raw. They're certainly a lot more enjoyable when they're ripe, but they're pretty cool. Nice and sour, kind of like a Granny Smith apple, like I said before. Alright, so on that note, let's head into the kitchen, and I am going to first collect a few berries, and then we'll work on trying to pickle these. Probably more of like a lacto ferment, not necessarily like the sugar and vinegar method. So yeah, I'm going to harvest a few berries, we'll see what we've got, and we'll go from there. Okay, so what we have here are some freshly picked green gooseberries. I'm just gonna take the stems off and the dead flower heads. I'm gonna put them in this jar. Then I'll add in a brine solution and maybe a few spices. I'm gonna take it easy on the spices right now because I don't really know what kind of flavor this is gonna throw because I've never done this pickling with gooseberries before. So I kind of want to get to know their flavor so I can get a pretty good idea of what I'm working with and what spices I might want to add in next time. Alright, so I'm just going to add in a bit of black pepper right now. And I'm just going to follow that up with the brine solution. Note this is just water that I've heated up and added some salt into. Now I didn't heat it up too hot because you don't want to kill off the microbes or anything like that. That's pretty neat. The gooseberries are actually staying on the bottom. I thought they would float on the top. Okay, so I'm just gonna let this sit for a few days. I'll cover it with a towel, but I'm just gonna let this sit for a few days, a few weeks, maybe even up to a month, to see how long this fermentation process takes. And I'll have to keep an eye on it throughout the time too. As the process goes underway, the berries may float to the top, and then what I may do, I may take a smaller glass jar and I'll just put that right in here to help keep the berries underneath the water level. So we'll see how this pickling process works with softening up the texture of the unripe gooseberries. I was considering like doing a lye brine like you would for pickling olives, but I'm gonna hold off on that for right now. I'm just gonna see how this does, and I'll probably do an update video on this to document that, and then we'll go from there. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.